I was saying that this is a huge disappointment on the part of the team. You've covered many tournaments, but in the last two, the team has failed to deliver. Where do you take this from, and how does this disappointment look like, and what does it speak of our football at international level?
Well, I think that if we needed any more clearer indication about the state of competitive football in Ghana, then maybe this has highlighted that the state is fairly simple. To sum it in a very simple way, it's a sport that's benefiting a lot of individuals, and best of luck to them. The players are playing at club level, they are flourishing, they are getting good deals. But collectively as a nation, our football is in tatters. The under-17s can't qualify for major tournaments. The under-20s can't do that. The under-23s are nowhere to be found. And the Black Stars continue to be an absolute mess on the international scene, you have to say. In the past, I tweeted last night that in the past we used to get angry and upset about exiting competitions in the semi-final stage. I remember sitting in the commentary box in 2008 and stepping out after that game against Cameroon ended in the semi-finals and dropping a tear because I couldn't believe the Black Stars had not won the tournament. And I long for days like that. I long for the period between 2008 up to 2017 when the least we would do in a tournament, in a Nations Cup, was to get to the semi-final stage. And even in the World Cup, if we exited in the group stage, in two World Cups, we were straight away all the time through to the knockout stages. So it's a bit incredible, and how low we have sunk. We sank low because maybe a lot of the lessons from that period we've not assimilated well. So I think personally that the things that give us so much success as a team, as a country, we've sort of thrown all of them away. A broader outlook to selection of players, a certain level of consistency that runs through the youth team. We built a team that went to our first World Cup by building on the gains of the 2001 under-20 team that finished second in the under-20 World Cup to Argentina. Yeah. Then when that team began to fade off a bit and a little more of the players started to fall off the radar, we built a team on the back of the under-20 World Cup winning side to build a team that reached the quarterfinal, and then build a team that went on to almost win the Nations Cup in 2015 and in 2010. So there's been a certain method to our approach, and all of that is gone because at the lower level, the authenticity to developing talent is gone. It's become using it to prop up individual clubs of individual members. It's become an opportunity for people to use that as a route to develop, bringing money into their own clubs and the rest. Nobody is going out to genuinely look for talent. You literally left all that work to write to dream. So Kudus, Myanmar, Gideon Mensah, and all that. And because other people want to cash in so much, everybody seems to want it. And that's made our junior teams an absolute mess. And it's just bad. It's that bad, honestly.
Yeah. But I realize, yes, all of us admit this has been a downfall when you look at the senior national team, and also the GFA and our domestic product have fallen. But a lot of promise was made of Chris Hughton's appointment as the head coach of the Black Stars. After this tournament, does it ring any surprises? Was it this that was expected of him as the quality coach who was coming from the Premier League with all the experience to handle the Black Stars? Many feel that this downfall should be his blame or his fault entirely.
Oh, I completely agree with you. This is on him. Because, I've said a lot of things, but also this is not a loss you can blame on the lack of players. You understand? So
yes,
because
sure.
We have a team that can call on reasonably good players. Mm-hmm. It's not as if the players we took to the Nations Cup are any worse than the players that Comoros picked, for instance, or the players that Equatorial Guinea has. We called on players who were playing club football in Chiku at Fenerbahce, a regular. We called on players like Mohamed Salisu, who we literally went cap in hand and begged in England to become a Ghana player before the last World Cup.
Yeah.
We could call on even Baba Idris, who was an absolute disaster every time he came on on the pitch. With a regular in La Liga without Maria, and then you could have Jordan Ayew at Crystal Palace, whose contribution consisted of winning more free kicks than creating chances for his fellow strikers because he barely crossed the ball. Or you could call on Inaki Williams, who, for all the criticisms and the problems, is pretty decent striker in the Spanish La Liga with a team that sits in the top 5, Atletico Bilbao, or maybe a Kudu. So this was not, or Semenyo with Beaumont. This was not for a lack of talent. This was also a case of the leadership of the team not being able to do the things that sends the right signals to the team. I think Hugh team watched the management of Oti Adjei badly. It was obvious from the Oti Adjei era and the World Cup, from that game against Comoros 2 years ago, that maybe the time was near to transition Dede and unleash the team of the burden of having to consistently accommodate him.
Yeah.
And it was very simple. You watch the Black Stars closely.
True.
The Black Stars' best games in the last 2 years or so has been when Dede has not been playing.
Exactly.
It's not for nothing. It's not for nothing that our best moments against Egypt were in that moment. You literally needed to, and sometimes you send a message to a team that a player who has not played for so long, look, there is too much entitlement to playing for the Black Stars. And this is not just a Dede Ayew problem, this is a Black Stars problem. I remember very well the issues I had with Richard Kingston at the time he had to retire, when all he was interested in doing was to accuse journalists of being the ones who forced him out. Even he did it when he became a Black Stars regular at the expense of the likes of Suleiman Tai. It was difficult for them to deal with.
Yeah.
But we've never built a strong national team without first clearing out a generation. And it seemed that at this stage we were not able to do it. What you want from a coach like Houghton, with his reputation, what he's seen in football, is the ability to be dispassionate and to make those decisions. And it didn't work. And for me, the most shocking thing is that you could tell whenever you were watching the game that every time Ashimiro was going off, you could tell that we're going to have a bad time. Because Baba Idris can't hold the ball, or he's unwilling to hold the ball. Distribution was zero. He just kept piling the pressure on the team. It didn't happen once. It happened in every single game that we played, which suggests to me a systemic problem more than anything else. And Houghton could barely do anything about it. He kept doing the same things over and over again. And the most shocking thing to me yesterday was just the logic that went. And I really am interested in hearing him explain what was going through his mind when he picked out potentially our best player from the first half and replaced him with Dede in that moment. What was he doing? In the first 2 games, you didn't play a player. He had no influence on the team. Your team was doing all right. You had a 1-0 advantage. You had the capacity to hold that enemy. So everything about Houghton's man management, his management of the team, his tactics, his ability to send the strongest message that he will pick players on the principles of fairness and everything, has been thrown out of the window. And every bad decision he's made has come back to bite us. So in the second game, his changes were primarily the reason why we considered the goal that we did. Yesterday, his changes contributed a lot to this. His decision to stick with Ofori and not allow Atizigi to build on the gains of the World Cup, even though Atizigi is a regular in the Swiss top flight, and Ofori has not played a game in the South Africa Premier League this season. In fact, Ofori is third choice in the South Africa Premier League this season. So he will make 1 or 2 brilliant saves, as we saw yesterday, but in the most crucial moments, he let both himself and his country down. But it's not him. It's the coach who has allowed all this to happen. Because as a leader, he's not sure the capacity to be able to make the calls required in order to keep the various team members on their own. if you manage a team that loses concentration so consistently, we conceded 5 goals in this tournament.
Yeah.
Every single one of those goals, maybe with the exception of the penalty, every single one of those goals came from an absolutely avoidable and ridiculous error.
Yeah.
And that for me is a major problem.
Well, going forward, I'm sure definitely Chris Hughton will be shown there. As it should we allow any of George Boateng or Didi Dramani to take over, just like we allowed Chris Hughton and Oti Adjei?
No, sir.
What should be the way forward? What kind of coach should we look at, and what should be the ideal plan now? Should it be government involved, or the FA, led by Keto Kraku, need to fix this well themselves?
Well, look, I think government needs to take a bit more interest. The point where the GFA is almost, the GFA and the sports ministry are almost one and the same, needs to go. There needs to be more scrutiny of what the GFA does. Sometimes even if it's at the risk of erring on FIFA's side. You can't allow this to go on. You can't allow your national teams to become this bad and not bother, unless government is not bothered about the money it spends. So there needs to be a bit more scrutiny.
Yeah.
A bit more understanding of who comes in. I think the next coach, we need to find a coach who is good enough. It doesn't have to be George Boateng, I'm afraid. Shouldn't be Didi Dramani. I don't think, I've not seen anything to be convinced that a continuation of the Oti Adjei, Chris Hughton squad is what Ghana needs. I'm totally unconvinced. Let's find one brilliant, good ex-player committed to the national team, and let's give them maybe 5 years or so. But if we do all this and we don't build the base from the national team, from the junior teams, and we don't stop turning it into into the biggest marketing platform for players, we will be doing zero work. So the overhaul must be complete. And I beg of the people who call themselves football people, if you run football and you have the interest of Ghana football at heart, you should be holding Kets and the GFA administration to better standards than they are doing now. Allowing the things that go on in the system to keep going on, it's just not right. There seems to be almost like we've given the current GFA a carte blanche to make mistakes. And it's not like we see improvements when the mistakes are made. We do this. They've been the same thing. I could list for you the last 5 tournaments where we've been absolutely horrible at every level. This is the first time we've had back-to-back Nations Cup exits. We exited group stage in 84. We didn't even qualify for some time, so that we can deal with. We were back in 92. We were bang on. It showed that we always take our time to rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bad Nations Cup in 94. What did we do afterwards? We literally rebuilt that team of the under-20 team, qualified for our first World Cup, and we went on a run of Nations Cup semi-finals every time we showed up there.
Yeah.
And again, we rebuilt properly. 2010, when the likes of Asian, Muntari, John Mensah and the rest were unavailable, we still had a solid crop of young players to build on.
Mm-hmm.
You know why we did that? Because we had a good under-20 set, but we also had a coach at the time who was prepared to make the bold calls and who was prepared not to interrupt that rebuilding process when the big boys came back. We need a coach who can have the balls, but we also need a system that works. You can't have one without the other.
Thank you so much, Michael. I know you are very much pain, and we just hope that we get out of this together. But